Hi, good evening, everyone. Class is in session, and we have a wonderful treat for you tonight. When we have new experiences that enlighten us, when we have those moments of epiphany, uh, where it something shifts in us, something changes. Um, if we're brave enough, we share it. If we're brave enough, we tell people that this thing happened. And it only took me 40 years, 42, I believe, to tell what happened to my family. But when Jeff Turner and I came together a number of years ago, hi from Australia. Oh, I love my Aussies. Oh my God. Hi, and Witch Moon and Nikki and Jeff. We got Dottie Ann tonight. Oh
Hey,
my God.
everybody.
It's great. It's wonderful. So when we have those things that happen in our lives that are worth telling, worth sharing, because it offers people a different perspective, a way to maybe think differently about something that they presumed. And when that happens, it's a glorious thing. And so tonight, Jeff, it's your turn to tell a story. So I'll just read the description for everybody that hasn't seen it yet. Tonight's episode of Soul School, this particular class is called Homecoming. And it turns out we can go home again. It may be a vibration of a visitation of, oh my God, I'm so blind. It may be a visitation of precious memories, or it could be an actual excursion which stirs the soul. Jeff Turner has made a journey and had a personal epiphany he is willing to share. A generous spirit, his vision is inspiring and will undoubtedly help many others find their way home in heart. Now, I'm starting to wonder, since we've been struggling for about 10 minutes now to get Jeff hooked up with us on KGRA, keeps popping out and popping out. And it could be lousy Wi-Fi, or it could be spirits that are making their presence known, which, happens pretty frequently with me anyway. But, Jeff went home to his childhood home and had an incredible experience. And, it takes everything for me sometimes to tell our story. So it will be wonderful to hear his, so that we can do a little comparative analysis. Bill, where is Jeff Turner?
Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to say, where's Waldo? I'm like, where's Jeff Turner? But
Waldo lives up at Wally World.
I just want to let everybody know, before we started the show, I already had my own quick Soul School class session. Annie said something happened to me over the last few hours, and Annie said, well, that's your angels watching over it, because I lost my keys and I didn't find them till this afternoon, and I was supposed to go out this morning, and they were on a lamp. I don't know how they got up there, but they were on a lamp. And she says, see, you were supposed to go out. That was to stop you from going out. So I got taught before this show even started by her. I'm just saying. Anyway, let's see what Jeff is doing. Let's see
what Jeff is doing.
Jeff, talk to us.
Uh-oh. Hey. Oh, he's all frozen up.
Hear me at all? Or am I?
Yeah. You know what? Maybe you just
remove your video.
Yeah, stop the cam and just do the show with Andrea without the cam. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to do that. All right, I'm out of here. Have a great show and have a great weekend to everybody, and love to everybody.
Okay. So, darling, can you drop your camera? It might give you better, because you got this like buffering thing going on, and I don't want to tell your story for you. I want you to tell it. Bill.
I don't know. It's like you just said a few minutes ago.
That weird.
Where is Jeff Turner? I'm going to tell you, there's been a lot of weird things happening the last few days.
Well, I'm starting to think that it might be the spirits in his home from his childhood that maybe don't want him to tell his story tonight. You know, we've had a lot of very strange things happening as well. Yesterday was the first anniversary of our mother's passing, and you know, I almost braced for impact, if you know what I mean. You're so lucky to still have your mom. I know she drives you nuts sometimes, and I'm sure you drive her nuts sometimes, but you have each other. And I would give anything to have mom back, even if it was just for a day, as bittersweet as that would be.
And you know, he's coming back, but you know what, too, Annie? That's why it's important. Some of us have issues with relationships with our
resolve them.
Resolve them. Yes, make that peace if you can. And if you can't, that's okay too, in a way, because at least you made the effort to try to make the peace. And that's what you know, that's the best thing you do. All right, let's see what's going on with Jeff. Jeff, you there?
I'm here. I have my camera off, but hopefully my audio.
Right. We can hear you. Have a great show.
Hi, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm deeply sorry for that. It was, yeah. So I am here. Am I coming through okay? You can hear me? I'm not cutting out or anything?
No, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. If you can hear me, let me try one other thing.
Okay. Oh my God. You know, it's 2025. You'd think we would be able to do this without any glitches. You know, I mean, I can't have you glitch out on me because this is your story. All right.
Well, can you give us a little background on his story before he comes?
Okay. He told me that he was going to the town that he grew up in as a boy in northern Michigan. I honestly don't know the name of it, but, you know, it'd be up to him if he wanted to share that anyway. And from what I understand, and he can correct me, if we can get him, he can correct me if I say anything wrong. But according to my own recollection, he ended up going to the house that he grew up, and he had his daughter with him. And he knocked on the door, and the homeowner answered and let him in and spent hours sharing stories and experiences that very closely mirrored each other.
Wow.
So 40 years later, you know, he revisited the spirits that he knew as a child. And, you know, we have talked about this on the show a number of times, that he always felt like it wasn't just the spirits. He had an experience out behind the house in the woods when he was, I believe, 9 years old, where three beings that very closely resemble the one that's on the poster for KGRA, that were standing in the forest and started approaching him. And he backed away because he was frightened. And they were trying to tell him that they loved him. And he was terrified because he was just a little boy. And he kept his distance. And I hope that I've got this right. I mean, it's been probably a couple of years since we talked about this, but, you know, Jeff has been connected for ever since childhood.
Jeez, my dog just scared me. There's a raccoon in the back. He made me jump. I didn't expect that. But the thing is, that's what he recalls. Who's to say that there wasn't visitations when he was even younger than that?
Well, you know, that's the thing.
That's what a lot of people say that happens to them as a
Yes.
baby, an infant. They come to their crib and they have that experience from an early age, and they're looking after it. That's why the love. Whitley Strieber mentions something similar to that.
Yes, going way back before his first conscious contact, where he was visited and taken. And his whole family was involved. His whole entire family was involved.
All right, but now give me is it specifically these beings, or there's other things going on as well in this house? Because is it like a portal? Is it like a time bubble? Because that's what the big thing is now, Annie. It's the fifth dimension, interdimensional. That is the big theme out there right now.
Yeah,
in ufology.
Yeah, but it's not just a bumper sticker. You know, I really do. I've seen enough to know we live in multiple dimensions that exist simultaneously, and you know, it's so hard. It's like trying to distinguish between religion and philosophy. They're so intertwined that you cannot extract one from the other. In order for me to get my degree in philosophy, I had to study every single major religion and read the text from all the religions of the world for as far back as writing existed, from ancient Chinese philosophy to existentialism, you know, the whole French movement, to Rene Descartes, to, I mean, you name the philosopher, and then you name some of the mystics, like Khalil Gibran, and who's a modern mystic, going all the way back to Muhammad and before. And what you see are the same messages, which is why I sometimes get very frustrated in Soul School, because we, the students, don't seem to learn very much. You know, I mean, it's bombs away in the Middle East again, right now. That's going on, right? And it's on my screen right now. Well, no, right now they're showing all the spots where there are going to be major protests tomorrow. And I made posters all day, new ones, to go to the new protest march tomorrow. So anyway, that said, it's very hard to distinguish between, you know, is everything paranormal, everything that is ethereal in nature, that is mystical, that is magical, that is not of this world and yet manifests in this world. How do you distinguish what is extraterrestrial in nature, what is spiritual in nature, what is divine? What is, if everything is one thing, because everything is energy, if everything is consciousness, if everything is energy, then everything is one thing. And I know, remember that photograph of me at the farm where you can literally look right through my arm and see the woodwork on the other side of me as I'm touching an entity at the end of the table, and all of a sudden my whole arm disappears? That's because I was in another dimension. You could see through part of me because it wasn't in 3D when they took that photograph. And they took a series of photographs. And if you enlarge them, and we've put them out 100 times, but if you enlarge them, you will see not only a shadow figure of what looks to be human standing in the doorway into the library at the farmhouse. You will also see at least 3, possibly 4 very, very small crystalline light vessels.
All right, I gotta stop, because you made me think of a lot of things when you were just talking. First of all, if they have the ability to control time and space, how do we not know? And I'm just making an assumption here that they already know from an early age at birth who those that are going to be positively influential in our development. When you say philosophers are all people with expression of love. That's why if there was ever contact, we need philosophers there. along with religious leaders and scientists, whatever.
Yeah, no, we would need Jeff there, who's kind of all three. He is. Hi, sweetheart. Are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Am I coming through okay?
You are coming through perfectly.
Okay, thank God.
Perfectly. Take it away. And if I
Okay.
said anything wrong, correct me.
Okay. I am so sorry for that little delay. I don't know what happened. It must just be the electric energy between the two of us when we get together. So
What I'm thinking. Or we can blame Bell. I blame Bell for everything.
let's stick with Bill. Okay.
Okay.
So I hope no further mishaps like that happen. If they do, I'm very sorry. I apologize. Well, I don't know what you guys had talked about so far because I haven't been able to hear anything or see anything. So,
okay. I talked about the three beings that you saw when you were a small child, a boy of about 9 years old, I believe, that you were afraid of.
Yeah.
And I told them that you went back to your childhood home and were invited in and had an amazing talk with the owner. And that's about it. So why don't you take it from there?
Yes. And I had contacted you early in the week because this is something I really have to hash out and have a conversation about because it was such a deep and powerful experience and one that I've known I was supposed to have for a while. And it was a journey that I know that I was supposed to go on for a very long time, for a lot of different reasons. You know, Joseph Campbell says, if you travel far enough, eventually you'll find yourself. And this was kind of a journey like that for me. Well, this was kind of the climax of the journey, but the journey went way back. I'll just start by saying this. My family and I grew up in a home that was, for all suits and purposes, and or lack of a better term, haunted. And I know not everyone likes that word, but I use it very intentionally because to me it's packed with philosophical depth as well as religious and spiritual depth, because to me haunted means something more than just spooky, scary movie, Halloween vibe. To me, haunted means, well, it means haunted. There really just isn't, there's not another real word that zings you quite the way that one does. It means constantly being in the felt presence of the other, that you sometimes manage to lasso with some consonants and vowels, but more often than not, it remains in the realm of the ineffable, and you really can't speak about it. You really can't wrap verbiage around it. It's there, it's ever present. You feel it, it impacts you, it changes you, and it transforms you. But to speak of it, you just end up speaking in tongues and babbling like a fool. You really can't, or you just have to say so much to describe so little a moment.
And that's how it was for me writing the trilogy, having to say so much to encapsulate maybe just a moment of time.
Because these moments are they're moments in time, but they're Narnian wardrobes. You know, the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia, that's a normal, banal object to the external observer. But once you open the door and move inside of it, you're in an entirely different universe that you can get lost in for years and then exit and be in the same time you were when you initially entered, but you've lived lifetime.
Oh, no. Oh.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I lost you guys again. If you guys,
no, there you are.
If anyone's hearing me, let me know. Talking. If not,
we can hear you.
I'm going to assume otherwise.
Here, I'll send you a message. We're sorry to our viewers. These things happen. We can hear you. Okay. Okay, so, well, he'll be back. Sorry. You know, this is like one of those situations where, you know, you're in school and the, you know, you got two teachers in your room and one of them keeps having to run out for something out in the hallway and then come back. And then, okay, there you are, you're back.
I'm here. Am I okay? I don't know. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay.
It's going to be the night when I'm like supposed to be just kind of talking solo almost, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. I better get through this before it happens again. Please forgive me. so I don't know exactly where I cut off, but just, you know, these moments that we experience, these are moments, literal moments, you know, a chill down the neck or whatever, or whatever, but they're moments where eternity and time bleed into one another, and it changes you, for lack of a better term. And so we grew up in a house that was much like that. And for the first 13 years of my life, that was what I knew. I was ensconced in the supernatural. It was just a part of everyday life. It started when I was 3 or 4 years old and heard my father whispering to my mother about the experiences he was having in the middle of the night with things he couldn't explain. You know, it began coming down in the early mornings and seeing our giant console TV that probably weighed 1,000 pounds pulled into the doorway of my parents' bedroom, you know, just white noise and static because I didn't know what was happening. But my dad was having these terrifying experiences in the middle of the night with things he couldn't explain it. And the only way he could get back to sleep was to pull, because we didn't have TVs in every room back then, was to pull this giant console TV into the doorway and try to fall asleep by watching, you know, reruns of The Honeymooners. You know, it was the only way that he could get himself back to sleep. And terrifying encounters, and whatever it was that was in our home that we experienced, it did seem to be of the malevolent variety. And I know that's not always the case, and I'm not of the opinion that, you know, a haunting, just because it's a haunting, is a malevolent thing. But what happened in ours did seem to be more along those lines. That was kind of the experience that everyone had, and there may have been multiple things happening, but the most prominent, the ones that stick out in everyone's mind most prominently, were of a darker variety. So anyways, I grew up in that. That was really my youth. Whenever I doubted the reality of God, my father was a pastor as well, you know, and still is. So that was our whole life. But whenever I doubted the reality of God, that tethered me to the supernatural, because I was like, I can't deny that happened, right? I can't deny that I was touched by the unseen in those moments. And so that sort of would keep me tethered. But as I grew up, I really kind of lost my faith entirely. And I told this story many a times, and I won't take too much time telling it tonight. But I became a pastor later in my life, about 20 years old. And I was a pastor for about 12 to 13 years. But I did come to a point where I lost my faith. I lost my belief in the supernatural. I could no longer believe the way that I once believed. And that was for a variety of reasons. But the thing that, again, brought me back was the fact that I was still haunted, quite literally, by the events of my childhood. I was haunted by the unseen. I was haunted, and hunted, I suppose, by the numinous, to the point where I couldn't just let go. I couldn't just say, really, this is all just BS. I couldn't, because I couldn't explain those moments and those experiences. And I've told the story here on air before, but one of the ways that it culminated for me was I was still preaching and teaching and doing what I did, but I was plagued and riddled and pockmarked with doubts. And I could not, I was really struggling, right? And I had just come back from a ministry trip, actually, from Colorado, where I was with some dear friends. It was a great time. You know, I was still kind of all hopped up on the dopamine of just having been with my friends and having been in a great, just conference-like experience. But in the aftermath of it, I'm still just like, God, do I really believe this? I was plagued because of some of the things that were happening in my life. And a friend of mine and his wife invited me over, and it was a very dark and difficult time in my own life personally. They invited me over, and they invited me over for dinner and a movie. And the movie we happened to watch was The Conjuring, right? It had just come out, and on where you could rent it or stream it or however we watched it. Yeah. And or maybe he pirated it. I don't know. I don't know what he was. I don't know how we got a hold of it, but somehow we had it and we watched it. And it changed me, because here I am doubting, but in this moment, I'm like jerked back into my childhood, because there was just something about the setting and the way it was shot and the feel of the movie. And not all movies have this feel, at least not to me. But there was definitely something on it, is the only way I can describe it, that pulled me back to my own youth and to my own childhood. And I was immediately like in the presence of God again, in the presence of the unseen, while watching that movie. As dark of a story as they make it into in the movie, of course, you know, I was somehow back in the presence of the unspeakable and the unnameable, because I was like, I can't deny what occurred when I was a kid. And so that's one of the weird connections you and I have. And years later we met, which is why it was so serendipitous when we did connect that I'm like, how did this connection happen? You know, this is probably the only reality in the multiverse where you and I somehow connected, because it's like, it just doesn't make sense on paper, but here we are doing a show together, you know, if my internet will keep working.
And we decided to do this with a suggestion. With sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and you want to do a show together, yeah, let's. I mean, it was manifested that instantaneously.
And we both knew it was like, this is supposed to be, this is a divine thing, you know, like, yeah. So back to the actual like story, I guess. I guess what I was saying before I cut off the first time was, you know what? There are times in our lives where we are called onto initiatory journeys, where we are called in that Campbellian, Joseph Campbell sense, to travel far enough so that you find yourself, which is really traveling so far away from who you are that you eventually meet yourself on this end and you find yourself a transformed individual. And it's like finding yourself for the first time, but really you're just fully becoming who you are. And so there are these moments where we are summoned onto a journey. And if you don't take the journey, you're not transformed, right?
Yeah.
And I was summoned, I think, in many ways in that moment when I watched The Conjuring with my friend, when I was really at the end of my rope. And this kind gesture from these two people who just were really kind of feeling pity for me in a moment because they knew some of the things that I was undergoing became a summons. It became Moses' burning bush on the backside of the desert that summonsed him to go to Egypt and say, let my people go. It was Abraham's hearing the voice of Yahweh say, leave your father's house and go to a land I will show you. It was that moment where, you know, Frodo is called to carry the ring to Mordor. It was that moment of initiation, the call. That was it. That was where it happened for me when I'm looking back at it. And I was called onto this journey. And part of that journey was bringing me back to my family's home, bringing me back to the home that I grew up in, because there was something there I had to rediscover, something there I had to reconnect with. And I knew part of it was writing this book and writing, well, I don't even know if I said that, but I am writing a book about it at present, and where I'm going to lay it out there. And there's a reason behind it. It's not just about telling a spooky story. There's a purpose behind it, you know, telling a larger story, but it's nested within this story. And I've been trying to write it, but the thing is, there was a blockage in me. I couldn't get it out. I would try, I would sit down, I would write. I mean, I've written, you know, a few dozen pages on it already, but it just wasn't coming out of me. And I prayed and I said, God, what is it? You know, what is blocking me? Why can't I get this story out? And I knew immediately what it was. And it was 3 summers ago, a dear friend of mine. I always tell people, I've only had 2 best friends. I've only ever had 2 best friends. I'm married to one of them, and the other one was this particular individual. And we became best friends in 5th grade. And we still pretty much were. You know, you lose touch over the years a little bit here and there, and you take different paths and you become different people, but we were still very much best friends when it came down to it. That's how I work. I can actually not see someone for years and reconnect, and it's like it never happened.
No time has passed at all.
Exactly. And that's really like the transcendent nature of love too. That's kind of how it works. It's eternity. And so, you know, this guy was my best friend. And, well, he died tragically 3 summers ago. The fact of the matter is his life was taken from him in a very tragic way. He was attacked in the woods and he was shot 5 times in the back. You know, that's the tragic story. It's terrible, but that's what happened. And, this has sat like a boulder in my chest for 3-4 years, however long it's been. I've not been able to, it's just sat there. And I've tried to talk about it. I've tried to get it out. I just couldn't. It just hurt. And I got stuck. It stuck here, right? You know? And I went to his grave and talked to him. I went to his funeral. I went to the memorial. I went to all that. And I just couldn't move on from it. You know, it was just, and I even feel like I've communicated with him. I really do, you know, in the cloud of witnesses or however one wants to view that. Even so, it was just there. It was there. And it was this deep, deep pain point. And, you know, I went to his grave once and there wasn't even a headstone there. And there's reasons for that. I understand. That's expensive. I get it. Maybe they weren't in a place where that could be done, but it just bothered me. There were nights I just couldn't sleep, thinking that this guy basically, it was like a Hallmark decoration you could have grabbed and walked away with. Like I could have taken it home with me. And again, no condemnation to anybody. Who knows what the situation was, but it just bothered me. Many times I prayed, God, make me a millionaire. Or, well, maybe just a multi-thousandaire. We'll go with that. Whatever you want to do. Let's do the millionaire bit, though. You know, I was like, first thing I will do is buy him a headstone. Like I couldn't sleep sometimes just thinking he was there like that. So it just bothered me. Anyways, I knew it was his birthday. And I knew my wife and my son were going to be down in Orlando picking up my oldest daughter and bringing her home. So my youngest and I would be would be home alone for about a week. And I said, on his birthday, we're going to go up to where he's buried. And I'm going to have whatever kind of moment I need to have and just see what the divine does with this. So we took a little trip up there. And that was the intended purpose of it. I knew I was going to go visit my family home as well because it's in the same city. And I knew it was connected, but I just didn't really understand all the dynamics of it. I just knew I had been called on a journey somehow, right? And these moments of initiation are powerful. And when you're called on one and you feel spirit calling you and drawing you, go. Do it. There were times in my past I would have dragged my feet on that and said, no, we can't afford the hotel stay right now, or no, I can't afford to take the day off, or no. It was like, do this. You have to do this. You're being called and summoned to this. If Moses hadn't been where he was when that bush burned and wasn't consumed, well, we don't have the Exodus, right? There are times when you're called to something for a reason and you need to be there. And this was one such moment. And so we go up there. I'm obedient to it as much as I can be. And my daughter and I, you know, we stay at the Doherty Hotel in Clare, Michigan. Now, if you know anything about the Doherty Hotel, it's supposedly one of the most haunted hotels in Michigan. And look, I'm into all that stuff. I really am. You know, I think it's all, I don't want to say I think it's fun. I mean, there's a tragic story behind it all. But I mean, that whole side of things, you know, it's very interesting to me as a deeply spiritual person. It's not necessarily the way that I explore the spirit realm typically. Yeah. But I'm like, we're here, we're doing this. My daughter's into the kind of paranormal investigation thing. So I'm like, well, let's just, I don't want to say let's just do this, right? So, you know, I'm talking to the lady at the front desk. I kind of tell her in brief what we're there for. She gives me the key to what she says is the most haunted room in the entire hotel. I won't say her name because I don't know if she was supposed to do that, but she does. And she's like, just bring it back. So we go up there, we go to the room. We've got like the, you know, little tools you use, whether someone thinks that's a good idea or not. Again, we're just exploring in this moment.
Well, it's electromagnetic field. I mean, you know,
exactly.
It's, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like you, I kind of more go off spirit and intuition. That's kind of, but in this moment, I'm just, we're exploring. Right. And so nothing really happens in the room itself, except we definitely feel some kind of presence. And the last thing I say as we're leaving, I was like, well, you know, it was great to be here with you. Thank you for allowing us to feel your presence, even if we didn't see anything or hear anything. And the word pops up, feel, as I say, thank you for letting us feel you. So we're like, okay, well, that's interesting. And my daughter, as we're leaving, is like, oh yeah, we're staying in room, blah, 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 if you want to come visit us later. And I'm like, all right, kid, you know. Anyways, so we leave and we go and have dinner and we do our thing. And we come back into our room later that night, and the lamp that I know I left on because it was very dark in the room is off. And I'm like, oh, that's strange. So I play around with it, try and get it to turn on and off, and I can't get it to do what I want it to do. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'm like, maybe don't just go giving random spirits our room number, kid. I don't know. You know what we're dealing with here. But but anyways, you know, so whatever. I get it. We get the room back to how we want it to be. We go and just take a walk, and we're getting ice cream and just having a good daddy-daughter time, you know. And so we do a little bit more exploring to the hotel, and we're doing the whole thing, and it's interesting. We get some hits and stuff, and you know, it's just interesting. We go back to the room, and the lights on, everything's as it should be, everything's as we left it, and I'm brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed, possibly applying some skincare. I don't know what, you know, doing my thing I do. And my daughter, all of a sudden, I hear her. She's like on TikTok right against the wall. So I know she's not on the other side of the room where the lamp is. She screams. I see the light go out. She's like, Dad. And I come running out and the lamp just clicked off. And I don't mean like it was jostled and it went out. It was like click and the lamp goes off. And I'm like, hey, we're here for a reason. Let's see if there's any message. And so I was like, well, so she pulls out the device that we're working with. And I just say, what am I here for? And it's like red, you know, I mean, it's active. From the moment that light went off, it was charged. The room was on fire, you know? And I'm like, okay, what am I here? What am I doing here? Why am I here right now? Not in this room, on this journey. Why am I here? And it pops up to move forward. And I'm like, okay, I'm here to move forward. And I'm like, how am I to move forward? Instantly, by returning. So I'm here to move forward by returning to what was. I'm here to find myself by moving out. And I'm like, okay, that's wild. And I'm like, I'm here to move forward by returning to what? And then the word pastor pops up. Of all things, I've never had it. I've never had that before. I've never had that particular set of words pop up like that, especially not like that. I'm like, what? I was also there because I've been extremely stressed and extremely anxiety addled for the last few weeks. I just have. And it was like to heal wound, stress, anxiety. You know, I'm like, holy moly. Like it was just boom, boom, boom. I mean, it was like I was sitting there with a mic talking to someone. Anything I have, but that was the stuff that stuck out, especially why am I here? To move forward by returning. And then it calls me or says the word pastor. Like, how bizarre is that? Okay. So I go on that. So it's sticking with me, man. You know, that just hit me. And then instantly, all by the way, everything just stops. It's like, and there's nothing.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I know that feeling very well.
And then you're almost just like you feel the absence, you know what I mean, of whatever was just there talking to you.
The bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, so I'm like, wow, I've never had anything that boom, 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 boom like that. Anyways, so we sleep. A couple people I've told this story to are like, did you sleep? I'm like, actually, I don't want to say like the dead, but like a baby. Yeah, I slept. There was no fear involved in this. For some people, that would have been terrifying. There was no fear. There was no dread. There was nothing. I was fine. Just slept as though I was in the arms of Christ. I was just like, I was fine. Whatever this was, it was light. It was pure, you know? And I truly have a belief that if you know who you are in the spirit realm, what you don't desire to come to you is not coming to you. I really, truly do believe that if you know who you are.
Too. Nothing dark comes near me.
No, me neither. In fact, I think when I walk, it parts in front of me. That's how I believe, if you really know who you are. And so anyways, we sleep, we wake up, have breakfast, we're doing our thing. I go get us coffee. We're having a good time. I'm like, okay, it's time to go. It's my friend's birthday. Let's go see him. So we go to the graveside. It's uneventful in a sense. I just mean like there's nothing like what happened last night happens. And I'm not trying to make that happen. I'm there to say some things that I need to say, leave some tokens behind that are meaningful to me, so as to say there's certain things I'm leaving, there's certain things I'm taking. I have my words. It was beautiful. And I felt a deep release and also a deep connection. And I left there knowing that my friend was somehow with me and was serving as momentum behind me to get this book written. You know, I just knew it in some way. And there was also a severing that happened. And I felt that severance of some things that needed to be severed. It was powerful. So anyways, we move on. And right from there, directly from there, we go to my old house. And I had been trying to contact the present owners because I'm trying to get their story of what happened after my family left, to see what connections there were, and, you know, to have some kind of supplemental stuff, because I know some stuff happened, some pretty intense stuff. And I just want it verified from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that, you know, people can just know and have something to kind of, you know, put their faith in, so to speak. But I haven't been able to get a hold of this guy. And so I'm like, Abby, my daughter, I'm like, listen, if I can't get a hold of him this morning, we're just gonna go knock on the door. Sorry. Like, I'm like, I mean, I know that's weird. It's like literally out in the boonies, you know, but like, I got to get a hold of this guy. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And she's like, all right, let's do it. We're like, she and I together, we're like a power team. So like, we got this. She's like, all right, count to 5. You can feel anxious for 5 seconds. Once you get to 5, it's done. You go do it. I'm like, all right, kid, you know, that's my 15-year-old for you. And so we pull up and we're like, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm like, let's do it. I get out. I go to walk up the door and the guy meets me. And he meets me with a gun because we out in the country. I don't blame him. You know, he doesn't know who's showing up, you know, and he's like, hey, you know, can I help you with something? And I'm like, yes, actually. And I tell him my name. He knows who I am. We've talked before. He was like, oh man, I was hoping you'd show up one of these days to talk to me. And he was like, I'm sorry, let me put this away. And he says, you know, the reason I have this, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, I hate to alarm you. He's like, and then he literally tells me the story of my friend's murder. He's like, I don't know if you've heard about this, but not too far from here, this happened. That's why I'm so guarded. And when we meet, he puts it away. And instantly I know I'm living the playing out of the sign now. You know, my own barrier, the thing that was keeping me guarded, was blocking me from what? From the story, you know, of the home I was about to enter, had to do with that connection. And now I had let it go. I mean, of all the things that could have happened, you know, that's the first thing out of his mouth. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Like, that was my best friend. It's his birthday today. That's where we just came from. And he was like, are you kidding me? He's like, geez. He's like, what a weird connection. And it was like instantly, then we connected, and he just starts telling me all these stories, all kinds of wild stuff. I mean, the things, and I'm going to put this all in the book. Maybe we can talk about it in a future episode.
Yeah.
But the events that happen post us moving are insane. I mean, it is the stuff of movies. Like, I mean, the stuff of, like, I was just like, geez. And he didn't know what happened. We didn't tell him. My parents didn't disclose that because I don't think it would have been a good selling point, right? And he starts just telling me all of this stuff, just unburdening and talking. And like an hour goes by, and I'm like, you know, my daughter's been sitting in the passenger seat for about an hour. And he's like, well, do you guys want to come in? And I'm like, is that okay? Like, I just showed up unannounced, you know. If someone showed up at my house unannounced, I'm not sure it would be ready for guests. But he was like, oh, it's fine. And his wife said it was fine. So he took us through the entire house. I have not been in this house in 30 some odd years, meaning we moved when I was 0. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't been in that house like in some 30 years. And he walked us through every room, let me take pictures and video. And I was like in awe being back in there. And the amazing thing was, I did not feel any of the dark energy in there that we often felt growing up because of something that they had done post us leaving that was incredibly dramatic. And he said nothing has happened since they did this, which we'll talk about another time. But it was just, there was a purity to it. There was a kind of a closing of the loop and of the circle that happened. It was so powerful. And we connected, and he was like, anytime you're here, you don't have to stay at the hotel. This is your house. You can stay here. It was like this total reconnection that happened. And it was like this thing that I had been cut off from and felt like I had no connection to, but that I knew I needed to connect to. In this moment, it just connected. And it started off with the removal of a barrier between him and I that had to do with my friend, you know, and it was like, just, it snapped like Legos into place. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, what a divine thing. What a God thing. And we exchanged numbers, and we're going to have a subsequent interview. I'm going to go back up there and sit down over coffee and just hit record and let him tell the whole thing, and I'll transcribe it for the book.
Excellent.
But it was so powerful, Andrea, and it changed me. It was my burning bush. It was my Jacob wrestling with the theophany at the fort of the Yabok. It was that for me. It was so powerful. In that small little confluence of events might not sound like much, but it changed me. There was something that just snapped. But this was the most peculiar thing. I feel to text a friend of mine. Not a friend I talk to very often, but he's a friend. And this guy is a prophet, a shamanic type figure. Scary accurate. I mean, scary accurate, almost to the point where you don't
want to hear it.
You don't want to hear it. Yeah. Cause you know, he knows. Right.
Yeah.
And, but I texted him. I was like, hey man, really having a powerful spiritual experience. And I'm feeling very vulnerable, and I know there's something happening. And I was like, if you get something for me over the next few days, please don't feel weird about telling me, and he was like, okay, bro, if I do, I will. But nothing in the moment. And I just forgot about it. Well, he texts me 3-4 days ago. He was like, can I call you right now? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I've told him nothing. I have posted nothing about this. I have said not a word to anyone, at least not to anyone who has a connection to him, like zero. And he's like, you know what? He's like, so I call him. He's like, man, I don't actually have anything for you right now, but I just felt to call you and to like maybe pray a little bit with you and do the thing that I do and just see, I'm like, okay. He's like, do you want to tell me anything beforehand? I was like, no, I'd prefer if something comes to you, it's just organic and I'll know. And he was like, yeah, that's cool, man. No worries. And he's a very, as epic as I'm making him sound, he's also very, very chill. You would never think he is what he is.
Yeah.
And so he just starts doing his thing and I can hear him on the other end, kind of just breathing and then he's like, oh man, he's like, this isn't where I thought this was going to go at all, Jeff. And I'm like, well, let me have it. And he was like, all right, well, he starts describing this being that he's seeing that he describes as being what he perceives as being my angel, my personal kind of guardian. And he was like, and I see this thing walking towards you and you're basically doubting yourself. You're feeling a little defeated, and this thing is walking towards you with a candle, or a lamp. And it's like, he sees you. He knows what you are. He sees you in a way that you don't see yourself. And as he's getting closer, this light's illuminating you and you're starting to perceive yourself the way that he perceives you. And he's like, and as he's getting closer and closer to you, I feel to tell you that this is what does he say? He's like that. This is he says, returning. This is returning. He's like moving forward by returning.
The same words that came up.
Literally to a T, he says the same words. He's like, this is in the moment, like he's hearing them.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a moving forward by returning. And then he's just like returning. And then he's like, and now I just see you surrounded by people and they're all just saying pastor. They're all calling you pastor, which is exactly the message that came forth that night, which was move forward by returning and then pastor. And that's exactly what he says. Like I audibly gasped on the other end because this guy had no idea. And he told me to a T what the experience was. And he called me out of the friggin' blue to tell me that. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, now listen, man. He's like, I know you gave up the pastoring thing basically, and you gave it up for a reason. And you might feel like it's not what you're supposed to be. He's like, I'm not telling you it's going to be exactly what it was, but he's like, but I'm telling you, you're going to move forward by returning to something. And I'm seeing people around you calling you pastor. There's something to this. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it is this. And then he goes on to tell me things there's really no way he would have known. Things about children that have been lost, to my wife and I, names that he would not know, that he sees with my friend, also part of this ancestral team cheering us on. And he just weaves this tapestry that there's no way he had the thread to weave on his own. And I'm just left speechless with my mouth agape in awe, gobsmacked at what just happened. And he's just like, all right, man, well, cool. Let's stay connected. That's just the kind of guy he is. I'm like, hey, yeah, sure. That was cool. We'll stay connected. And I'm like, it changed me. I am not the same person post that experience as I was prior to. And man, there was a lot more, and I'm sorry I didn't get to tell a lot of details just because of some of the lag we had.
You know what? Next week, let's just pick up where we left off because we're not done with this yet. No. And I know how not only was I shaped by growing up in the house that I grew up in, but going back to it changed me. Yep. In fact, every time I go back, and I don't know if I'll ever go back again. I don't know what the future holds around this whole farmhouse thing.
Yep.
But it has now become so much part of me that I can literally close my eyes and be there and feel the the presence of what's there. and it lives inside me. And your story, you will end up using the archive of this show to make notes for chapters in this book.
Yeah.
And let's do this, as you write this book, we'll revisit over the weeks,
yes.
the progress that you're making, any other inspirations, epiphanies that you're having. And I thank you so much for sharing this tonight. This is a wonderful, this is going to be an absolutely extraordinary piece of work, a memoir for you, really. And let's just leave it with this tonight. I always knew you were coming home. I always knew you would be coming home to the ministry, but your ministry, my ministry, our ministry. And we will follow up on that personally.
Yes. Amen.
So, amen. Yeah. And, for everybody that joined us tonight, thank you. Bless you. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the beacon of hope for someone else. And always, always be the light you seek. Class dismissed.